Games, boards, games, and UK Games Expo. It's what we're talking about. UK Games Expo is the show, but we're not gonna shout. There were plenty of people there. On the Friday and Saturday, they were everywhere. Of course, Sunday was a bit quieter, that goes without saying, but it's something that I guess I'm singing. We'll compare and contrast our experiences, and we'll think how it may be how this is. UK Games Expo, it's what we're talking about. UK Games Expo. I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's 10 a.m.ish. Time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Bladder with my delightful guest, Alan Paull. I've already talked quite a bit about how it was for me. I've talked with Jess, I've talked alone, and I'd like to discuss with you, Alan, how was your show? And I might interject at some points to compare and contrast, and I'd like to talk about joining up with someone to have a joint stand, to have a somewhat bigger company, Gibson's Games in your case, who's got, okay, here's a game, can you show it on your stand? And that's an interesting experience. I'd like to talk a wee bit about that. Before we get into our regularly scheduled content, is there anything that you'd like to say about yourself? Anything that you'd like to bring up right now about this topic?
Well, I'd like to say good morning, Bez. It's great to see you again. Is it nice and warm where you are? Because I have to say, I have had to open the window. It is getting quite hot here, and I think it's going to be one of the hottest days of the year. Hottest days of the year. Yeah. So
everything's a game.
Yeah, everything's a game. Yeah. So is it nice and warm with you down in?
It is.
Yes.
Nice. It is fairly mild, and I'm happy. I think I am actually wearing 2 layers, so I've still got a sleeveless top under this t-shirt. But I like the warmth. That's part of the reason why I'm planning a move to Thailand.
Well, I thought I'd start the day with my surprise stare, uniform on today. Although you don't know what I'm wearing in the bottom half, obviously. But so this is the kind of shirt we have for our uniform at the UK Games Expo.
Are you wearing trousers?
Technically, well, actually, I'm wearing shorts. Let's be honest. I am actually wearing shorts. So I thought,
well, that's more than you could be wearing. You could just be wearing pants, and I don't mean pants in the American sense.
I don't often do live broadcasts just in pants. Actually, not often. Yeah.
But it has been done.
Could I just start? The most important thing about this UK Games Expo thing is to start with thank yous to all the people who watch on our stand, particularly Charlie, who's my wife and partner in Surprise Day Games, who did a sterling job, and also to Chris, Philip, Becky, Peter, David, Graham, and Abby, who all worked for us. That was our team. So you had a big team this year, a big stand. So yeah, that was quite good. And thanks to everybody who worked on our stand, because they did a sterling job.
I think that's such an important thing to say, that sure, you can have the space, but not only do you need some tables and games to be played, but you need some people to teach those games, and people who actually know the games and have been willing to learn the games so they can teach them well.
Yes.
And that's so important. And a quick hello to Timmy. It's always lovely to have you join us. Thank you very much.
Hi.
And beyond that, how many square meters did you have? What were you showing at your stand? Yeah. Are you willing to share your sales, or is that a bit too private, confidential?
Well, I haven't got the final sales figures yet for various reasons, but yeah, I'm happy to share a bit of that. The stand, we had a 70 square meter stand jointly between 3 companies. It was Surprise Dare and Triple Ace Games and Chaos Publishing. Chaos Publishing had a small section of the stand there. I think they had one on table. So we had a bigger stand than we've ever had.
And
which obviously means then you have to manage.
Presumably split. So it was like, okay, this many meters is for you, this many meters is for you, this many meters is for you.
more or less. Yeah, we weren't absolutely strict about it, but we had, so we had, looking from the front, we had the right half ish, slightly less than half, and Robin and his team had the other bit. But we also had, the advantage you have is that we had a common stock room. So Robin built a little stock room for us to put, well, stock, but also to keep out of the way all bags and coats and other acquisitions that people might have made. So keeping that out of the stand area, which is good. And we also had a centralized till. I cannot recommend that enough. To have a
that is
centralized till and shop area, so that all the sales, the actual sales bit, is separated from the demoing, and that's really helpful. So we had one person, one or two people manning the till. They box and cox on the till, and it worked really well.
Yeah, I guess
So using
ideally this is the
electronic,
kind of
yeah.
thing where you can almost save on space. And of course, a quick hello to Rob. It's lovely to have
Hi,
you
Rob.
join us as well. And yeah, just to give us an idea of the scale, did you say 70 square meters?
70 square meters. Now,
70,
normally,
and
70.
that's
Now,
divided amongst three.
yes. Now, normally, our surprise day stands previously have been about 10 square meters, just for us, or even 8 square meters. I think at UK Games, actually, depending on how much space they've got. So that's quite a big step. So we had effectively, I suppose, about 30 square meters, so about 3 times
For
what we would
you.
normally
And
have for
that's
us. Yeah.
amazing. And hello, J Fools Guards. It
Hello.
sounds like well, just from visiting, it felt like you've got Kingmaker here on
Yeah.
one big
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
leaving that there as a feature for people to come along and wonder and investigate it. And then you had the pocket campaign games. That was the
Yeah.
big thing that you were pushing.
Yes. The
And
way we organized it is that we had the actual stand walls at the back, so that we could put posters on the stand walls, and I think we had 4 posters pinned to the back wall, and we had a Kingmaker table, which is a permanent feature, and it's quite a big game. So we had a 6x4,
maybe
whatever
not
it
the
is, six
kind
by
of thing
four
that you
table.
want to keep putting up and taking
No,
down.
not really.
It deserves a
And
permanent fixture.
yeah, and
It's
that
a
was
big release.
mainly I mean, I had some kind of wild fantasy that people might actually want to play Kingmaker during the show, but since it's a kind of 3-hour game, people were very keen looking at it, and I was demoing a lot, but not playing, because I think sitting people down for 3 hours is probably not on. And
It
then
is a big ask in when
yeah, it
there's
is.
so much else to see.
Yeah,
Like for sure, that's a smaller thing like GridCon or
yeah,
Bastion, I could absolutely
yeah.
imagine that. But when there's 450 exhibitors to wander around, I mean, I
Exactly.
do
It's
wonder
not.
whether you would have benefited by having a dedicated time, like a sign-up slot saying
Well,
at
I
3
did
p.m.
actually. I
I
did
don't
have
do
that.
2 p.m. because then we'd be competing and I wouldn't be happy about that.
We did
But you
actually.
could
I had 2 events. I had two events logged on the event. The UK Games Expo has a list of events you can look at. I had 2:30 on Friday, 2:30 on Saturday logged as events for playing Kingmaker for people to sign up to, but it's not. Nobody took that up. And as I said, it's not really it's not an easy commitment, because it is a 3-hour game. Now we also had on the stand, we also had Snowdonia, the big deluxe master set edition thingy, and that we did have people playing that. That's only an hour, 90-minute game, and we had a lot of people played that during the show. That was great. That's really handy. And then we had another table that people could actually play the Pocket Campaigns games on. And then at the front of the stand, we had 2, what do you call them? Pedestal demo tables?
Yes, I know what
Standing
you mean, like
tables.
something where you're
Yeah.
standing. They're a
Yes.
bit more elevated and
That's right. Standing demo tables, anyway. And those were ones we were showing the Pocket Campaigns. Now, though the great thing about having a partner like Robin Elliott is that he is a 3D specialist. He makes things both physically and digitally. Now, that means that these standing tables, he made them. So, and he happened to have a couple of spare ones. So we were able to use his spare standing table, which is really good. Game plinths. There we go. Thanks, Rob. That's that's the kind of thing. They were fairly large. I think they were about 2'6" wide hexagonal ones. They're big
So
enough
they
to.
were giant things that had been constructed by
Yeah.
Robin Elliott,
Yeah.
director of Triple Ace.
That's right. He's director of Triple Ace Games, and so we were able. They were big enough to take two of each, to take two of the pocket campaigns. So basically, we'd have two laid out on each one. If somebody wanted to look at one of them in particular, we could move one of them out of the way slightly and use that space for demoing the other one. It really worked very well.
It makes lots of sense having your own furniture, because
Yeah.
for a chunk of the stand, I mean, our tables were pretty fixed where they were. We did have people standing. Some of my games actually work better if you're standing. But a couple of the demonstrators mentioned that as the days wore on, they were a bit tired of having to bend over so much.
Having the standing ones is now. On the other hand, if you have people coming to the stand, which you might do with wheelchairs, having a table as well, very important. So we could demo. We could demo on the little table with people sitting down, or we could demo standing up.
That's really true.
And I think that's important. Also, it means that you don't have to have your volunteers, your demoers, standing the whole day. They can swap out to doing the demoing or helping people play the games on the tables. And that's very important. You have to make sure that people aren't going to get exhausted by this stuff. So I was very happy the way that worked.
When it's busy enough, people can stand. When it's getting a bit quieter, you can invite more people to sit down. But it's so important to be accessible. I heard from Sally Walker that unfortunately, and this is sad to say, that there was some ableism and misogyny directed at Sally, saying, "Oh, do you really play games?" And people would talk to Sally's carer, even though Sally was her. And this is secondhand, but I'm not saying anything that hasn't been publicly posted on their Facebook and blog and Instagram. And I think it's just important for people to be mindful that, it doesn't matter what someone looks like. It doesn't matter if they are able to walk around a hall or not walk around a hall. It doesn't matter what gender or race or someone is. They might be far more into role-playing games and have far more expertise than the people at the stands, frankly. Because myself, I love party games. Alan, you're really into war games, but that's not to say that, someone couldn't come along with even more knowledge than you.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think, we actually, I mean, I drew up a kind of policy for this because I haven't done this kind of thing before with a lot of helpers, a lot of volunteers. I said we had.
It's mainly just in addition to me, the core parts of the company.
Yeah, in addition to myself and Charlie, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 7 direct volunteers at various times, and I arranged it so that mostly people were doing 2 or 3 sessions, where a session is either a morning or an afternoon. So it wasn't. I'm happy it wasn't too onerous for them. In fact, I would probably revise that. We can talk about that later. But the important thing that I have in our policy is you have to have respect for every individual who comes to the stand. And so, for example, one of the things we were doing, we weren't wearing masks. I mean, virtually nobody was wearing masks. But if somebody came to the stand with a mask on, the person who was going to do the demo would put a mask on. And that's just showing that we respect that their wish to wear a mask is valid. So
I remember you saying that before the convention, and that's something that I took on board myself. It's really good you're setting an example there. I do want to address Jay Folsgaard's comment in here, but first of all, I would, before we start getting into ideas and exploring UK Games Expo a bit more, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. So, do you feel fully recovered? Do you feel like you can Games Expo? You've fully sorted out the things. For myself, I still need to, properly unpack and do a stock take, which I've not done. And then, but my priority right now is still on getting the LARP finished for this Saturday, which is
Oh, yeah,
kind of scary. But after yesterday's stream of Chloe, I've got a better idea of, okay, this is what I'm going to write for each of the characters. And
good.
I've got a framework in my mind. I don't have the specific words yet, but I've got the ideas kind of culminating. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I know people are like, oh, don't just think about it, write it. But it works for
Right.
me. I will be writing it today. But
Good.
like writing stuff that's not already written. I've already started writing stuff, but that's been a thing. I need to do a lot of shipping. That's a thing. And yeah, just unpacking. But I am hoping to be able to take some time kind of off where I'm just finishing off some games that have been left kind of undone.
Uh-huh.
Like maybe the one that we were working on with Matthew Dunstan and other things, and making sure that my pitches with bigger companies are going okay and making sure I've got everything, because I can't just always be working on new game, new game, new game.
Yeah,
I need
yeah,
to make sure the old games are actually doing okay and refine them and finish them and sometimes also take a bit of time for your personal life and be like, okay,
yeah.
I am going to try and sort out my living arrangements and have some fun with friends.
That's
That
good.
is what
No,
I'm up to.
well, we unpacked fairly swiftly, but we haven't. I haven't digested it yet. I haven't done much emailing of people to thank them, the contacts. I need to do all that, and I haven't done the financial side yet either. So yeah, there's extra costs to come in and sort out, but that's because we were having a bigger stand. There's lots of more things that happened. So yeah, I need to digest exactly what's happened. We actually did a pitch this year to Osprey, so I need to work out some more bits and pieces on following up with that. But in terms of recent highlights, we have actually been playing some games as well. Which is good. We have a Monday evening and a Tuesday evening session. So on Monday, we taught a couple of our friends Arc Nova,
Ooh.
which is good. So that was very good. And then yesterday, Fi and Charlie and I played the Australia expansion Wingspan, which we bought the Australia expansion at Expo, so we thought we'd play that.
And who would you
That was
recommend these games for? If people are listening thinking, is Ark Nova for me? Or is the Australia expansion of Wingspan for me? I've played Wingspan. I don't know what they might think of it. Like, presumably, let's assume that people are already familiar with Wingspan.
Yeah.
For whom would you recommend these two games / expansion?
Well, Arc Nova, Arc Nova, it's a bit of a step up from Terraforming Mars, but it's that kind of thing. So it's really, if you like those kind of longer, more intricate Euro games, it's that kind of thing. So the thing about Arc Nova is it takes a while to teach. So your first game is likely to be quite long. So 3 to 4 hours, depending on the number of players. But the thing about Arc Nova, which I found, is that none of the mechanics are actually innovative. It's just that they are put together in a really good way. So if you know a lot of that type of game, Terraforming Mars or games which involve action placement, card drawing, and that kind of thing, then you'll be familiar with things in Arc Nova. But it just takes a little while to get your head around how they fit together. So if you like that kind of medium heavy Euro, but I would say definitely.
Basically, anyone. Are you saying that anyone who's willing to spend 4 hours on the first game should go out and play it? Because surely it's automatically the case.
I would say if you like medium heavy Euros, it's definitely a game to sample, to play. Definitely, yeah. I don't think it's an auto buy. I don't think
anything's an auto buy. I think that kind of phrase is really problematic and leads to overconsumption, to be honest.
But I certainly think it's if you like medium heavy Euros, it's definitely worth playing. It's interesting. It's fun. It's got quite a nice theme. It's the theme, although it's a zoo theme, which feels like it ought to be a bit questionable in a way because you're putting
Mm,
animals in enclosures, but they've managed to put a kind of conservation theme on it. So a lot of the actions you do can be conservation oriented. So you can release animals into the wild; they get lots of points, for example. So they are conscious of that type of
nice.
problem with the theme. So
Yeah.
it's well executed, I'd say. Definitely, it's
And
definitely worth it.
what would you say the Australia expansion brings to Wingspan? Does it make? I mean, it's just a bunch of new birds, so presumably it doesn't make it feel any different. Is it just for people who've already played Wingspan so much that are like, yeah, I want to see some new
Yeah,
stuff, and that's it?
it's the kind of it's the kind of expansion that I don't really go for myself. I know a lot of people like it. The thing is, it adds another type of food. If you know Wingspan, there's 5 types of food. This adds nectar, which basically is a wild card food, which does lead to some very strange situations. So, for example, I mean, one of the things I put a peregrine falcon into play. Right now, peregrine falcon on the card, usually you have to put it into play and you play 2 mice, right? Because peregrine falcons eat mice, but you can substitute nectar. So I can put a
So
peregrine falcon
nectar
into
is
play
wild.
with wild card. But
Huh.
peregrine falcons really don't eat nectar. Not by any stretch of the
Yeah,
imagination. But
that's
anyway,
just
so
getting
it's a
wild
bit
card, and it feels
it's a bit
very
gamey.
sensible from a game point of view, but I can understand how that would take a little bit away from the theme.
Yes, but I think from my point of view, and there are rules about using nectar blossom things. So you get more. It's another route. You can acquire more victory points if you actually use the blossom. So it's another route to victory. So if you like that type of thing, and there's a lot more cards, huge amount of more cards as well. For me, I'm quite happy not to have that kind of expansion. I don't think it adds much to the game itself personally. But then that's just my view about that type
Okay,
of expansion. If you like Wingspan and you feel that you've explored the base game enough, or the other expansions enough, then yeah, it'll interest you. For me,
that
I,
makes
I'm kind of
sense.
I'm kind of shrug on that one.
Well, thank you for the honest opinion. And before we finish up the recent highlights, I just want to give a shout out to myself because I actually did quite a bit of exercise this morning.
Oh,
I feel
well
quite proud
done.
of myself. After I sent the emails, I went off and did a bit of exercise, and I was, yeah, that's a really nice way to start off the day. I
You
feel
see,
quite.
I haven't done that. I didn't
That's
really have
okay.
time.
I'm not here to
Yeah.
make you feel bad, but hopefully, might inspire you. Mate. I'm sure you'll get your long morning, afternoon, whatever
Yeah,
walk.
we'll do that. We'll do that. One other
Well,
highlight I need to say is I also went to a wedding at the last weekend. Our niece Laura and Matt finally managed to get married. They've been trying to get married for a couple of years, and now they finally made it. Hooray! It was in Malmesbury, so we actually also managed to visit Malmesbury Abbey, which I would recommend. It's really very interesting.
and it
uh,
seems like you had such a lovely time being with the family.
It was great. It was really good fun. Yeah, because we haven't, as I think Charlie was said, we haven't really met up as a family for over 3 years now, and now we have. Hurrah! It's great.
Does sound like a brilliant thing. But
Yes.
another brilliant thing is, of course, UK Games Expo
Yes.
itself. So going back to the main topic, and before, of course, feel free to ask questions from like follow and comments away. But what was your highlights? What made UK Games Expo, not just UK Games Expo, but specifically UK Games Expo 2022 for you? Brilliant. Brilliant thing.
Okay.
Brilliant thing. It's a little thing which is brilliant.
Actually, it was very simple. On Friday morning, I just stood back away from the stand and looked at the whole of that, the whole of the stand and the approaches to the stand, and the lots of people coming in, and people were sitting down and playing Snowdonia. My team, I like that. My team were were demoing you know, to lots of people. And it was just, I thought, yep, this is what we've come for. Lots of people coming to the stand, seeing lots of friends, and this is what we're here for. And Charlie made a good point.
Like a machine. Once
Charlie made
you
a
are
really good
able to,
point,
as a
actually.
designer, stand
Yeah,
back a little
yeah,
bit and
yeah.
watch
And see
people
it.
demonstrating and still
Yes,
observe that and learn
yeah,
from that,
yeah.
but maybe not necessarily always have to be the one doing the
Yes,
teaching, I
yes,
think
exactly.
that is so amazing.
But Charlie made a good point, because Charlie had thought, Charlie's quite nervous when we started, about the fact that you'd have to meet lots of people. And so she had originally volunteered to go on the till, which is fine, not a problem. And then, having been on the till for a little while, one of the Triple Ace team wanted to take over, which is fine. And Yvonne was quite keen to be on the till most of the time. And Charlie then started demoing again, and then she said, I really missed this bit. I want to get back to actually talking to people and meeting people, and that's what I like about UK Games Expo, is what she said. And that's exactly it. You know, it's a bit different from last year, because we were there last year, but
It was
it
kind of
was
off the
distance. It
sides.
was distance, and we had these big shields on our faces, or masks on, things like that, and it wasn't quite as intimate. It wasn't quite as friendly, if that's correct, because you're literally having to stand much further away from people, and humans like to do this interaction, don't we? Like to be there in person, and getting that reaction. Yeah.
Good morning, Matt. It is lovely to have
Hello.
you join us. And I couldn't agree more that finally watching these interactions, and it felt like it had come back.
Yes.
Like, it was slightly smaller than 2019 in terms of raw numbers. The number of people was actually marginally lower than 3 years ago, but they actually had quite a bit more space. And so
Yeah.
David Brain was able to come over on Sunday and not be
Yes.
overwhelmed, which was
Yes.
lovely. And yeah, just having a wee wave. And being able to talk to people, being able to sit down with people, being able to have a chat with Matt, and being able to have a chat with other people where it was, hey, let me show you a game where any bladder Scottish. I'm not going to say the full title, don't worry. And
Yeah.
there were, I think, 2 groups of people who specifically asked for it. And I've worked out a demo that takes about 3.5 minutes to do. So I explain the premise while I start reading out the title. Then I do myself a 1-minute turn. Then they do their 1-minute turn. And yeah, then I kind of maybe talk about the fact that it's completely unavailable, but why it's unavailable, and the fact that there's 550 illustrations I need to do, which is a fair number.
Yes. Yeah. We had a nice, the way I was training our people to do the demos. We have a kind of 1 minute. We have a 1-minute spiel for each game of the Pocket Campaigns games, and then we have the kind of 7 or 8 minute, this is how you play demo, and then if you want to play, there's a table you can actually play in more detail, and that seemed to work very well. It was lovely to see how that was working actually on the demo plinths. Yeah, it was really good to see all that working. It's just lovely to see people demoing their games. It was great.
Yeah, I think we could really get into the topic of demoing, but I think that whatever the length of your game is, you've got to have a pitch, a demo that's much shorter than that.
Yes.
And then before that, you've got to have a pitch, like a quick explanation. In my case, I try to make it a sort of 10-second pitch, which is literally just the title of the game in some cases. So if I tell you, would you like to play a game about quickly grabbing creatures and counting your beetroots, you know what you're getting into. And whereas if you say, hey, would you like to try Cousins War, it doesn't quite
well, we can have a 30-second. We have got a 30-second pitch.
Yeah, like you might say, oh, would you like to try a tactical 2-player strategic game called Cousins War, or something like that? You need to add some extra words to it. The title is quite long enough.
The title doesn't quite do it. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, obviously that's a more usual state. I mean, I don't think there's any
Well,
other
we had the
desire.
advantage. Would you like to hear about a 3-hour game of Wars of the Roses or a 30-minute game about the Wars of the Roses? Which is a juxtaposition of the two was quite good.
Now let's address Jay Folsgaard's idea that apparently leader games, when showcasing Groot, would start people playing all the factions and have people then taking
Oh, right.
over from each other. So, like, you might play for 30 minutes and then explain to the next player what you were doing as the cats or whatever. And presumably,
Right.
I'm assuming that
Interesting.
the players could then explain what was going on, but as maybe I don't know whether they would be forced to leave or whether it would be just the expectation. Would you like to have a half-hour sample of the game, and then every half hour, kind of putting new people in? But what do you think of that? Could you imagine that working,
I
or is it too
could
out there?
imagine. I think I can see that how that might work with Root because I think it's relatively straightforward to teach a particular faction of Root or demonstrate it. And if you have a player coming along who's watched the game for a few minutes and then takes over, I can see that working quite well with Root. There are lots of. I mean, I don't. For example, in our case, I don't think that will work very well with, say, Snowdonia, probably, because you've got some intricacies in so, and it wouldn't work with Kingmaker, I don't think, because there's quite a lot of teaching in Kingmaker. Just picking up and running with Kingmaker when you're just looking at it for a few minutes probably would be pretty tricky because there's a lot of technical bits and bobs, a lot of moving parts in it. It's an interesting idea. It's a very
It
interesting
feels
idea,
like,
actually,
weirdly, I mean, the
because Root
bird
is nice and
Ivory
modular, isn't it?
needs the long-term strategy. You need
Mm.
to be going in with, oh, I almost
Mm.
think that for the Irie, it might be a case of, okay, if you ever collapse, that's your turn done as the Irie. But if someone else goes in, you have to understand what the previous person was going for. But sure, there is long-term strategy in the positioning of things and the
Yeah.
negotiations you do with people, but it's a very reactive game. And the board state tells you what's going on.
Yes,
Whereas,
exactly.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Kingmaker, there's maybe a little bit less information on the board state and
Yes.
a little bit more. It's more about the long-term negotiation,
Yeah,
and
it is. Yes, particularly the new version is Kingmaker, because of what we've done with victory conditions. It means that actually the politics of it is more stressed. We stress the politics a lot more than just the military situation.
I mean that's what it's called
Yeah,
after all.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's all about making things.
But
Yeah,
it's a difficult one, and it might just be that sadly Kingmaker can't be easily demoed at such a busy convention.
well,
Did
no,
you deal with that? Did the Gibson's
I,
people have anything to say about that?
I found it relatively easy to demo. I didn't find it difficult to
Oh, sorry,
explain.
as in to
Um,
play, to
To
play the full.
play. Oh yes, to plays to play. Yeah, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't even really try to play the session at all. We were there. Well, we were there to show off the artwork because we had near final artwork for the board, and we had near final artwork for the cards, and people were interested in looking at that type of thing, and just literally just knowing when it's going to come out, which is early next year, when it's going to be kickstarted, which is September this year. So they wanted the hardcore facts is what they were looking for, and to be able to see it and get that visceral idea of what it's going to be like, because that's what they're really interested in. And we were able to give that impression and talk about their own experience with the old game, and and compare and contrast the old game and the new game, and that was what the main focus was on. And you're muted.
I
You're
almost
muted.
feel like you
Oh,
could have done a Kingmaker fan club at some point, had like a gathering for people to share their stories for an hour.
absolutely. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think we probably had about 75% to 80% of the people already knew of Kingmaker. It might have been, oh, that was a game I used to play when I was 14. That kind of thing. And I'm glad to see it's going to be published again. But we also had quite a lot of new players who didn't know it at all, and we're just drawn in by the fact that it's a big game and it's kind of showy, and we've got heraldry, and they were really interested, and that was good. We had all genders and ages and things like that. We had several. We had quite a few of what you might call the older players like me who would come along, but also a lot of young people who hadn't heard of it before. And in a way, that was what we were aiming at, expanding the number of people who knew about Kingmaker, so that we can get more people in the Kickstarters, but part of the marketing of the whole thing. And that worked really well. It draws people in.
It sounds like a really positive experience, and I would like to make this a slightly shorter stream than usual, if possible. So let's kind of start to wrap up. And I've not done what for you. I was going to say I've not done a lot of contrasting and comparing, to be honest, but it feels like, our games are different lengths. Everything of mine this year, at least, I was demoing as much as I could. Dice and Ink was the one. When I say demoing, I mean actually letting people play rather than just explaining.
Right.
And then Dice and Ink was the one thing that I don't really let people play, because it's a roll and write, and you can see it. Hopefully, you can get a feel of it. And we sold, I want to say, like 3-4 copies of that. But the big sellers were obviously the things that people could play and fall in love with. And you're like, okay, yes, I played a game about counting cat shapes and colors that keeps getting trickier. I played a game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures. And I much prefer the latter, so I'm going to buy that. And that was really interesting to get that sort of. And the interesting for me is I am in this transitional period where, frankly, if I do manage to sell a couple of my games to much bigger publishers, by which, let's be honest, I'm basically talking about Hasbro or Mattel. Those are basically the two options if you really want to go mass market.
Absolutely.
Then, that will kind of make any costs incurred at UK Games Expo just immaterial, frankly.
Disappear. Yes. Agree.
It feels like I did not make my money back. I'm going to say I grossed about 2,500, but the costs for my helpers, the paying the travel costs, paying the everything, it was more than that. But I feel like I learned so much about my games, and I'm going to go back to say, hey, this game that you accepted, that you are maybe looking at, actually, I realized that it's too hard, and I didn't realize it would be too hard. This is a game that you formerly knew as Plus, Alan. So back then it was 3 shapes, 2 colors, and sometimes you had 2 things at once.
Yes.
But now, I just realized that counting 2 things at once, it was that
It's
even
quite
for
hard.
gamers, that was too much.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is maybe have like 3 shapes, 3 colors, and you need to count 1 thing at once. And maybe there's an expansion, but it doesn't even need that. Like a tiny little expansion where you need to count 2 things at once. And to think that back in the day, before it was published, I had already the expansion of Confusion, which Dave Cousins suggested, which I really enjoyed. But that's the thing, you get sucked into your own game, you forget about how complex it is. And for me, watching people actually play it for the first time, that was the fundamental thing, the value that I got. Good morning, Alex, who was also at my stand. And
hi, Alex. Good to see you at Expo, Alex.
I think for me, I don't, except for the L deck, I'm happy to sell anything else. Honestly, if a company is going to print enough copies, I mean, Surprise Terror Games, with all due respect, is not the right company for my more mass market things. But, I am happy to license any of my things, and I don't feel the need to be. I consider myself a designer who self-publishes kind of just to test out stuff. That's kind of how I consider my status right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, our situation is slightly different. I mean, I think commercially, yes, we had a good weekend. Thank you. Yes, commercially, we were about the same as you actually. So I think we covered the cost of the stand, but not the other costs probably. So I mean, commercially, I would think the intangibles were probably more important than the actual cash that we got. But then the intangibles are like intangible. So how do you actually how do you know what the benefit is? So for example, we pitched a game to Osprey. If we actually manage to sell that game to Osprey, then that's an absolute benefit, total benefit. What I talked to a potential US distributor. So if we manage to get a US distribution sorted, that's another massive gain from an intangible. So yeah, I think those and there's a whole marketing being there and people seeing us with a big stand was all positive.
Absolutely, it's in
And
the
obviously,
market.
personally, for Charlie and myself and our volunteers, I think personally, seeing everybody and talking to everybody was a massive psychological boost, and that's great. Setting aside anything to do with the company itself, it's really good to have all that. By the way, before we disappear, just in
And a
case.
quick hello to Michael.
Hi, Michael. Just before we disappear, I do need to show some of these little things that this is Robin's steampunk space game. These are unpainted. This is a German battleship, I think it is. So it hasn't got its weapons on. So I haven't put them on yet. So it's got weapon mounts here and here. So
Nice.
and this is a little gunboat. So they're really, you see that? Yeah, there we go. 3D printed stuff. So if you're interested in this kind of, it's a really fun, pretty straightforward but fun tactical game. You can 3D print it, or like I managed to do, you can acquire the printed versions, and it comes with lovely
And what's the name of
die
this?
cut things. It's called Ironclads.
Ironclad.
Ironclads, and it looks like there's the starter.
Triple
There's the
Ace
starter
game.
pack. Triple Ace games. It's really good. Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into the drama mentioned about the maps. I will address this quick question. Do people go into conventions with the expectations that it will be profitable? It is a rhetorical question, but sure, it is marketing. Now, I have had a massive uptick, let's say a small uptick, which is slightly stressful because Chris is on holiday right now and not there to, because I can't do the post thing, which makes me realize that I need someone else to, or I need to learn how to do it myself. The kind of prepaid thing where you save like about £1 per shipment. It's quite a bit, £1 per shipment.
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah.
And then anyway, you expect that it will be profitable long term, but there is also the why are you even publishing? I expect that my self-publishing will be profitable long term? At the start, I absolutely did. When I was focused on continuing to make in a bind, I believed that it would have been profitable if I kept everything that was best for myself. But that's not what I'm doing. I make more money, frankly, by selling Gigamic, by licensing Gigamic in a bind, now known as Yogi. And whilst they want follow up, which I'll maybe talk to them about at Essen, because it's kind of starting to taper and we need a junior version. I mean, why not have a junior version? But anyway, the point is that yes, I expect that it will pay for itself in some way long term, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's nice. But I think that what Michael said was right. He was saying I was right, which is all good. But we at Surprise Day, we would expect Essen to be profitable. I would be disappointed if we weren't making a profit at Essen because it's a bigger show. But UK Games Expo, we've usually, in the recent, before the pandemic, I think we were just about covering our costs. But that's it. We weren't making big profit.
I feel like if you're
So
able to cover your costs, then you're
that
doing well.
yes,
Um,
definitely, yeah,
can
and
we
it is the intangibles. So,
wrap up with, do you have any tips for me or anyone else who might be thinking about going on a joint stand, or let's say next year, in the same way that you've made Kingmaker with Gibson's Games and you're showing it at your stand? If I want to show Seize the Power at my stand, I don't know if I will or will not in 2023. Do you have any tips for people or tips from your personal experience or quick takeaways?
of showing somebody else's products, you mean?
No, not showing someone else's product,
No.
showing a product they've
Oh.
collaborated on, like
Oh yeah.
King.
Oh yeah. It's all about the organization. Well, yeah. Because things are not under your control, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. So, for example, with Kingmaker, we had agreed that I would get the copy of the board and the cards. Now, that all worked out fine in the end, but it was quite late in the day, and so we had to have fallback positions about, I ended up not having a mounted board, but putting perspex on top of the board because it was a photo production,
So
photo
basically, what
reproduction
I'm
of it.
hearing
So
is, as soon as more people are being involved, there's more
there's
uncertainty.
more friction. There's more friction.
Roll with the punches and be willing
Yeah,
to adapt.
exactly. Yeah, yes,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
quickly, question of the day. It's a little question before we get on our way. Do you have a question for us, Alan?
I don't have a question today.
Okay,
Well, I do have a book, which is that Robin Fleming, Britain After Rome, from the fall of Rome to the Norman conquest.
And
If you
my
haven't read
question
it,
for everyone
read it.
is, do you like Chrome? I am indifferent to Chrome, to be honest. So everyone else, do you like Chrome? Over to you. What's up to you? You can share possibly if you want to. I'm going to skedaddle. I am going to
Yes.
spend some time with folk and also then do a bit of writing for the LARP. I'm also going to be late tonight, which is the afternoon/evening US time. I think it's 11 p.m. UK time. I'm going to be doing a stream with a bunch of people about small-scale publishing, which they define as 100 units or less. And that's something that I've got experience of, as well as larger scale, and I will be doing a quick comparison of the two. But is there anything that you want to share, anything that you want to do, have to do? Feel free to share.
We are going to be playing on Sunday Wizards by Avalon Hill. That's an old game, and it's a choice of Vicky, my daughter. It's part of her birthday celebration. Although her birthday was in May, we had to delay it until Sunday. So we're going to be playing 4 or 5 player or 6 player Wizards. Now it's one of those Avalon Hill games where the rules are laid out as you get. Let's look up rule number 1.51329, and that refers to rule number 2.3.6.1. Yes,
like real nostalgic blast.
It's great. It absolutely is. Look it up on Board Game Geek if you want to know more. I was going to say it's a really good game. It's an experiential storytelling game.
Saying that. Alex says Rome is pretty hot right now. People are saying it's the new zombies. And to recap and wrap up before we finish up, basically had a good UK Games Expo. Being part of 3 different companies, like kind of joint together, means that you can share some resources like buying area, and if each person only has like maybe 2, 3, 4 things that they're selling, like it's not going to take that much space. And if you want to stockroom, that allows you to do that, and it allows you to have a bigger stand and feel like a bigger presence. And you've got to make sure that you know the people that you're getting on with. Ideally, you've got a previous history with them. And we talked about books and me going to the gym and exercise and just generally UK Games Expo. It is good, not just because of the sales that you make there, not just because of the marketing and the sales you make afterwards, but also because of the personal gratification of being with people. And this is kind of why we make games. Not to mention that in my case, I definitely consider it a bit of market research. And Matt thought that Rome was literally hot. Actually thought that at first. I thought Alex was making a joke. Alex is working with playtesting free games set in the vacuum left by the death of a Roman
Oh,
emperor.
good.
And yeah, if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bed in all the places, everywhere. And Alan, if people want to check you out, where can they find you?
Alan at surprisetechgame.co.uk, or I am Alan Paull on Board Game Geek, and on the screen. There we go. Yeah, any of those would do.
And if you want to check out the future streams, then stuffbybez.com/streams. Because of the LARP stuff, it won't be anything scheduled until like Tuesday. I'll be having a meeting with ITB, and Rose has agreed, assuming that no one gets sick, to be part of the stream. So before we have our private meeting about Seize the Power, we'll have a public like 10 minutes. Hey, this is what we're up to. But other than that, it'll just be a bit of a vlog for a wee bit, no long form things. But share, spread the word. Thank you very much. Lots of love. And as always, one thing left to say is bye, 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 bye. It's a goodbye talk to bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time
Bye.
to go.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Alex. Bye-bye, Matt. Bye-bye, Jay Foolsguard. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye-bye, Alan.
Bye, Bears.